What is up guys, Andy Forestine Runner here, and today we're going to be comparing the Nike ZOOMX VAPORFLY NEXT percent to the Saucony ENDORPHIN Pro. So as with most of my comparison videos, I tend to like to get some good mileage into a shoe before I start to make a good judgment call on it and then be able to compare it to another shoe. However, the difference between these shoes and a normal pair of trainers is that the lifespan on these things are a little bit more limited. So what we're going to be doing with these two shoes in particular, and probably with the other racing shoes that we have coming up to review on the channel, is we're going to be doing obviously a speed session and a long run session, then they're being boxed back up for race day. So today's comparison, we are solely focusing on the tempo runs that we have done in these two shoes, and this is going to be part one. Part two will be once we've done a long run in both of these shoes, and then I will come back to you guys and give you a more fitting overall review of both of them, including how they fared with the long run. So today's focus is purely the first run, the tempo run, and how they fared on that run. I'm super excited for today guys, I hope you guys are. Make sure you give the video a like, share with your friends, and without further ado, before we dive into talking about the next percent first, let's remind ourselves with how we got on both of the runs. There we go, first mile, 5:40. Woo. Hot to handle. These shoes are good. Mile number 2, 5:46. Feeling good. Mile 3, headwind, uphill, 5:50. Ooh. Okay, coming up to mile 4 now. That one was a gentle downhill. 5:42. Very good, very nice indeed. Mile 5, 5:39. Wow, it's a bit quicker. There we go, just coming up to mile 6, 5:50. Match the last one, uphill headwind, last mile. Okay, mile 7 is a 5:41. Mile 1, 5:40. Exactly the same as the ENDORPHIN Pro, but dare I say it, a little bit easier. Mile 2, 5:53. Feeling good, feeling great. There we go. Mile 3, 5:51. It's a good shoe, it's a good shoe. Mile 4, 5:47. I've kind of dialed it back about 4 or 5 seconds a mile because I really did go full beans in the ENDORPHIN Pro, and I really do feel at the end 3 miles were not tempo at all, they were very much threshold. So today, just dialing it back, feeling in cruise control, and yeah, feeling good so far. Mile 5, still keeping it in good control, 5:48. It's alright. Mile 6, 5:50. I really do feel I got more control over this run than the ENDORPHIN Pro, but it's so much warmer today. It is sweltering, and it's not even 8:30. And there we go, final mile, mile 7 in 5:48. Boom. So as you saw from the clips there, I reined it back in a little bit with the next percent. I kind of realised that with the ENDORPHIN Pro, I got super excited, and I ended up pushing beyond my means, well beyond tempo pace. I enjoyed it, I carried on, but I wanted to be a little bit more disciplined when it came to this shoe. And I was prepared for the fact that it was going to be a bit of a slower run, but that was fine. I was kind of thinking to myself, how will this thing fare if we dial the pace back, dial the effort back? And actually just dialing the effort back by 3 seconds per mile, 4 seconds per mile, whatever the difference was, made all of the difference in terms of how the run went itself. Now, if it wasn't for gut issues on that day, I would have very tempted carried on and even possibly gone to a half marathon. I was shooting in this shoe for a good hour-long tempo run. It ended up being the 7 miles. I had to cut it short, as I said, for gut issues, but it really gave me a good amount of time to assess this shoe, see how it felt, and give you some feedback on how it fared. Now for me, in the first impressions video that I did for this, I don't think I articulated very well my thoughts and feelings towards this shoe. I think it possibly came over a little bit negative. I think what I was trying to say in a nutshell was that this shoe was world class, it was amazing, it was incredible, but I do like a bit of a firmer shoe for race day. And I think the softness of the ZOOMX foam just took me by surprise. I knew you guys had told me loads of times how soft and responsive it was, and I certainly felt that. It just felt a little bit too soft. So the jury was out in terms of how I felt about race day between the two shoes, and we'll talk about the final comparison at the end. But what I would like to reiterate to you guys is that I really did enjoy the shoe. Okay, I did enjoy the shoe. It is world class. It was phenomenal, and it made the pace feel effortless. There are a few points that I want to touch on with the shoe that really were just brilliant for me, and that was number one, the lockdown. The lockdown on this shoe. I know people have said in comments in previous videos that they've maybe struggled with the tongue, with the lacing, with the system. It just worked for me. This shoe is the best lockdown I've had in possibly any shoe that I've run in this year. To be quite frank, the Vaporweave upper for some people isn't to everyone's taste. For me, my foot literally molded to the shoe. Very similar to the Endorphin Pro, which we'll talk about shortly. My foot just fitted so snug inside the shoe, and the way the tongue went up at a slight angle and the laces, it just worked. It worked really well. And I noticed in the B-roll as well, someone pointed out in the comments, my right foot, where I have a little bit of a muscle imbalance, normally turns out, and it can sometimes, the ankle can sort of rock in. It did so very minimally in this shoe, which is incredible considering the stack height of this shoe. I really thought that we were going to be struggling a little bit with it, but weirdly enough, it worked really well. The second thing was heel slippage. Comparing to the Endorphin Pro, which we'll talk about shortly, I got none of it in this shoe. Again, really impressed with how my ankle fitted in there. I looked at this whole package, this area, and thought, oh gosh, another lightweight, thin heel counter area. How is my foot going to fit in here? It just locked down. It worked. The bumper padding around the edge there was brilliant. It just sat so comfortably. And so I was really happy with that. And in terms of the sizing as well, going true to size, it was just brilliant. Like the whole fit of the shoe was great. The only gripe I had was how soft it was, and you guys know how much I love a soft midsole, I love Fuel Cell, I love the Nova Blast, and this was actually not too dissimilar from the TC that I've been running in. It's not too dissimilar from the Nova Blast minus the carbon plate. The softness and the cushioness of the shoe is brilliant, but as I've said to you in the past, race day shoes for me need to be a little bit firmer, and I think, as a lot of you guys said, you guys felt similar feelings to me when you first got the shoe, and as you warmed into it, and as the long run will come around next weekend, because the Endorphin Pro will be this weekend, you'll find that the shoe will come into its own when you start to get close to that 20-mile mark. And I fully believe you understand and agree. I think and can kind of foresee when I do get to that 20-mile mark in this shoe in a marathon, it's going to absolutely become a world of its own. The cushioness, the softness is going to be there for a reason, and that reason only, keeping myself fresh, keeping fatigue free, and keeping me going to the 26.2 that I'm going to need it to. So I think, to be fair, taking it out for a very quick 7-mile tempo run was maybe not the first best run to do in this shoe. However, overall, I was super happy with it, and let's move on to the Endorphin. Let's talk about the pros and cons of this thing. The first thing I want to say is comparing the two shoes together. This is the one that I got the most wow factor when I put my foot into. This felt absolutely magic, and despite it being just a touch heavier than the Next Percent in my size, it actually feels lighter on foot. I don't know why. It's a mental thing. I don't know if it's the material of the upper. I don't know what it is. The midsole, it feels super light, just like the Next Percent. They both are very light shoes, but when I was running, this thing disappeared on my feet compared to the Next Percent where it didn't. I think the Next Percent, I guess it takes a while to get used to, and for me it felt a little bit clumpy at first. This thing looks and is shaped a little bit more like a standard shoe, standard trainer, and it just worked so well. But there are a couple of things that I want to point out to you, positive and negative, about this shoe. Number one, the positive, again, the upper. Both of these shoes have phenomenal uppers. We'll go to the comparisons at the end, but I really liked the upper on this shoe. Super breathable, completely different material fabric. It is more of a material fabric than the Next Percent, whereas a Vaporweave feels a lot more plasticky. This is much more fabric based, but as you can see, super lightweight in the top here. Holes everywhere, so that worked really well. Again, a nice bog standard heel counter, mildly padded, not a lot there, but enough to be cushioned. And the tongue, the gusseted tongue, that's a winner for me. Absolutely brilliant. Again, just locked the midsole in. For someone with a wide foot, it just worked really well. My one gripe with the shoe that I found, and I noticed it straight off the bat, was my right foot heel slipping. And a lot of you guys, in fact one of you on Instagram, messaged me in the video, you know who you are, I mentioned you in the last video, sent me a video of how to maybe lace them up slightly differently using the extra eyelet chain. I'll be doing that this weekend on the long run that I take this thing out and see if we can eliminate a little bit of that heel slippage. But other than that, that was the only con I found with the shoe. The midsole in this thing is absolutely stunning. Again, something in here, it's a combination of soft and firm, far more what I'm looking for in a racing shoe, and the tempo run that I did much more suited this shoe than it did the Next Percent. I would place this somewhere in between, halfway the Carbon X, which is quite super firm, and the Next Percent, which is much softer. This kind of sits in the middle. So let's move on to the final comparisons, the final points. Which elements of the shoes did I prefer from each shoe, and which one was I most blown away with? I think I'll just start off by saying the one I was most blown away with was the Endorphin Pro. I'm not going to make any secrets about it. I'm not knocking this shoe, and I think someone made a brilliant comment in one of the previous videos on this first impressions video. If I'd have tried this shoe last year when there was nothing like this out on the market, I would have been blown away, and I totally agree. But is it because I've tried things like the Fuel Cell TC, the Nova Blast, midsoles that are very similar to this thing, tried other racing shoes before getting my foot into this thing, that actually I wasn't quite as blown away as a lot of you were? Very possibly. I think it's a very good point, and I think now with the options that we have out there, we've got to look at it and go, actually, this was streaks ahead, and now is it streaks ahead? So obviously I can't compare or make comment on the facts of last year this was streaks ahead because I didn't try it. I've only just tried it now. But the wow factor has got to go to the Endorphin Pro. This was kind of like the ideal dream shoe. In terms of the lockdown fit around the heel and the upper and everything, both of them were so close, but I'm going to give it to the Next Percent. This, as I said, is the only shoe this year that I've got the most stable lockdown in. This thing is a very close second. Again, my foot just fitted, and that's what you want with a racing shoe. But I was really impressed after seeing some skeptical reviews of how much this stuff bunches at the top here, and sometimes how you guys can't get the best lockdown in the shoe. I was really happy to find that my wider foot fitted in this thing like a dream. So that's the upper, and the tongue has got to go to the Saucony Endorphin Pro. Gusseted tongues win every single time. Nothing wrong with this one, but a gusseted tongue is just comfort beyond belief. But on the whole, in terms of upper, definitely the Next Percent. Moving on to the midsole. Which midsole did I prefer? Endorphin Pro. This thing here, Power MPB, is something that Saucony have to keep hold of and utilize a lot more. I'm actually now really excited. I wasn't really going to try the speed and the shift. In fact, I was going to try the speed and not the Pro. Now I've got the Pro, I now want to try the speed and the shift. And I don't know, I haven't done any investigation, so you guys can comment below and let me know if that's using the Power MPB. But anything that uses Power MPB moving forward is a shoe that I want to try, because honestly, this midsole is a dream. It is halfway between, as I said, the Carbon X and the Next Percent. There's not a lot in it. As I said, I love soft, cushy midsoles. This thing is super, but I do feel, as I said, that maybe taking it on a 7-mile tempo run, this shoe has got to have the edge. The softness, I just felt like I was sinking into it. And one point to note, my cadence was much higher, not much higher, but higher in this shoe over the 7 miles in this one. 173 average in this shoe, 170 in this shoe. And for me, someone who's working on cadence at the moment, that's a big deal. So naturally, this felt lighter on foot. I could get my feet turning over better, and it just worked. In terms of traction, there's no difference between the two. They both have a very different outsole pattern, as you can see there. Absolutely chalk and cheese, but they both work really well. So there's no difference there. Overall, which one would I choose so far for the shorter distance work to end part one? The Endorphin Pro. For the shorter stuff right now, this shoe feels better. I have a feeling the roles will be reversed when we get to the long run test, but we'll see. Fatigue after the 7-mile run in this thing was 0. as was this. I was surprised with this to be 0, but honestly, I got to the end of that run and felt like I could do it all over again in both of these shoes. And that, my friends, is an absolute winning feeling. So that's it for part 1. The Endorphin Pro edges it just slightly, not knocking this thing, not taking anything away from it, but the shorter, sharper stuff has got to go to this thing. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll be doing long runs in both of these shoes, the Endorphin Pro this weekend, the next percent the weekend after, and I'll come back to you with part 2 of the comparison. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts and feelings. Let me know in the comments below if you have got your hands on either of these shoes, if you've run in them, which one you prefer for distances, and which other racing shoe you're super excited about coming in 2020. If you enjoyed the video today, guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Until then.